Hi, it's Hazel. Welcome to my channel. Oh, I forgot to check what day it is in the 100-day challenge. I just want to give you a heads up that I think that this is going to be a little, this video will probably be longer than maybe than normal. And that's simply because I have so much material that I want to cover. Today, I'm talking about ribbon. And of course, like I've been wanting to do a ribbon video forever, like a couple of years. And I think even before I had a channel, because I've got so darn much ribbon. I've said in the past, only partly joking, that I have enough ribbon to circumnavigate the globe a couple of times. And that's not far off the truth. So initially my plan was, okay, get a few prototypes, show what some of the, and of course, you know, most of this is not going to be new to many people. So the plan was get a few things together, show how ribbon can be used, and, call it a day. But then the more I started gathering supplies and thinking about what I wanted to say, the more I realized that this is, there's a lot to this. And so basically, and of course, you can see this is just something I threw together. I sort of began making this sampler, or this little, not a vision board, but storyboard, is that the correct word? To talk about, different types of ribbon. Then I realized, well, that's pretty inadequate. I can't possibly glue down a sample of everything that I have. So maybe I should make a few speaking notes. So then I did that. And then I thought, well, maybe people need to understand that ribbon comes in, some basic sizes. So I printed this off the internet. Some of this I remembered from my days running a flower shop, because of course with florists, we tend to use sort of this double-faced satin. This is the stuff that is common. It's sort of the workhorse in the florist trade, and it comes in a variety of widths. So I had remembered some of the sizes, but then of course I needed a refresher as well. So you can see that 1/4 inch ribbon is actually a size 1. So if a person were going into a wholesale to buy ribbon, typically they would have all the rolls, say of purple, all side by side, and then you decide, well, okay, I need a roll in size 1, and I need a size 3, and probably a size 5, maybe even a size 1.5 inch, or a size 9, because like it's sort of the mainstay, say for funeral casket sprays and funeral work and that sort of thing. So I just thought this was a good refresher for me, as well as for anyone else who has a curiosity beyond just how can I use it in my projects. According to this, 5 inches is about the maximum width. Just for the heck of it, this one, beautiful color, is 3 inches. So that would make it a size 40. I also, and I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, ribbon is the bane of our organizational little souls. So I put this, the contents of this, on here. Now you tell me, why in God's name would a roll with only 3 inches or 3 yards of ribbon need a roll this size? Of course, it uses up a lot of product. You can see how shallow this is. There are only a few rounds on it. Yes, you want the ribbon to stay flat and uncreased and you know, don't want folds in it and whatever. But my goodness, talk about excess packaging. Talk about all the spaces needed when you merchandise it, and talk about how much space we need in our homes when we try to store our stuff. So that's a little mini rant about that. So yeah, this is, like I said, the workhorse of the florist trade. Okay, what else did I want to say? I think that for the purposes of this video, I'm basically going to be considering ribbon and trim interchangeably. I know that it's probably something that most of us do unconsciously anyway. And I guess that when I started making a list of what I wanted to talk about, there are things that, you know, like, it's kind of an arbitrary decision as to what to put in which category. So, okay, let's go back to this thing. So my initial plan was to basically talk about some of the different styles, widths, composition of some of these things. But maybe because this chart, my organized, clearer notes came after this did. So maybe what would be better is if I covered my notes and then maybe just pointed to some examples. Okay, so ribbon obviously comes in a variety of widths. We've seen it can come from 1/8 of an inch all the way up to 5 inches. It comes in a variety of fabric content. So there's everything from velvet, and of course velvet, you know, like especially at Christmas, you'll see the nice maroon colored velvet ribbon, you know, maybe 2.5 inches wide or so on. So the content, of course, is going to tell us what sort of, well, it's the thing that's going to determine not the quality, but the characteristics of the ribbon. So for instance, here's something that's really sheer. Here's something, so this is 100% cotton. This is the polar opposite of this, if we're talking opacity. So this sheer ribbon, and I mean, you can only tell it's sheer, I guess, because I'm telling you it's sheer, but it's on a black background. So if it was on white, you would obviously know that it is sheer. So how crisp anything will be, how droopy or flowing or the drapeability of it will depend on its fabric content. Color, of course, is a big, big, big deal. I think many of us work on our projects and make choices based, you know, color is a huge factor, I know, in what I do. I should point out that if you're not already watching Tina at Shabby Dabby Doodah's channel, you should be, especially if you have any interest in ribbon. I sort of consider her the grand dame of ribbon. And, you know, she uses ribbon, you know, creatively and with with frequency and so on. So, okay, so what else did I want to tell you? Okay, so for the purposes of this video, I have many things. I have a piles that are ready to cascade and snuff me out in my prime. she said, tongue-in-cheek. Where the heck? Well, I guess I don't need to show you what twine looks like, because you know what twine looks like. So twine could be baker's twine. It could be sisal twine. Now this is not, I had a spool of it here for heaven's, oh, there it is. If I can pick it up, I'll show you. So twine. And again, we all know what baker's twine looks like. Okay, raffia. Now, do I have any raffia on here? This is this little sample here. I just want to make sure you can see it. This little tiny sample here is actually a fiber that I pulled out of digging in another special place here. When I saw this in a thrift store, I absolutely loved it, and I've used it in several ways. So every so often, and it's a heck of a mess. I mean, but every so often, I love pulling out a strand of it because it's got that metallic thread, it's got that earthy color, and a lot of possibilities in how I use it. So that's sort of the raffia thing. And of course, just like fashion and home decor, we know that there are styles and fads and, and frankly, if you live long enough, you will see some of these fads and these trends come around more than once. So there was a day when you couldn't, spin around without encountering something that involved raffia. Here is a bow that I made with it, and it has a distinctly sort of, country feel to it. It's, I think maybe the thing that makes it a bit harder to work with, the fact that it will split lengthwise, is also what gives it its unique qualities, the wispiness and so on. Paper twist. So this is a, well, let me show you on the roll. Oh, see, they're calling this raffia. So raffia, of course, can come in colors. I also, well, I guess, oh, darn it, I forgot to bring a sample of paper twist on the roll. I guess paper twist is actually more like, if you're old enough to remember when paper twist was a thing, it used to come on big hanks. It was either natural in color or it was dyed, and it looked like this, only much thicker, and you had to work like heck to get it unraveled. And I think the trick, if I remember correctly, was to sort of dampen it. So then, depending on what you intend to do with it, you could sort of, you could spread it flat, and it always had those kind of built-in creases, so there was some texture inherent in it automatically. You could shred it, you could make your ends a little more interesting looking by shredding and so on. So, since a lot of us get our supplies through thrift stores and secondhand shops and so on, there is a fair bit of paper twist and raffia type stuff out there quite often. This little scrap here shows paper twist that is essentially marketed flat, but it has all the ridges and design in it. A lovely, lovely pattern that I have used, and of course it saves you having to do the unraveling yourself. I have that. I have a chunk that's really wide that is basically, a seasonal thing. So it's got a Christmas carol. It's got music staff and sort of a Christmas carol or something on it. I liked it because of the color, frankly. Okay, what's next here? another thing, and it's not probably truly, like if we were trying to be very pure and pristine here in our discussion, sari is a type of fabric, and of course fabric is fabric. But every so often, often, we are tearing fabric into strips. So should this be considered a ribbon? I would say, for the purposes of today's discussion, yes, it should be considered a ribbon, because you can cut it the width you want it. You can do the same, put it to the same sorts of uses you would if it was a commercial roll of double-face satin. So, sari and other fabrics is another category. I don't have any of that on here. Then yarn and fibers. So we know, many of us, did I bring some of that out to show you? Oh, I tried so hard. Whoops. Oh, dear. I tried so hard to have some samples of everything. Well, let's look at part of this. So, now this is eyelash trim, and I do have a little bit of it here. But what I was really referring to in the fibers and the yarn category is something that is more like yarn, not, oh brother, I can't believe I don't have any within reach. Well, as I dig through some of the other things I want to show you, if I come across it, I will point it out. But again, I don't think anybody really is wondering too much about what that means. Yarn is the stuff that comes in balls or skeins, and it's, traditionally used for knitting or crocheting. But yarn, like so many other things, has gotten so interesting over the years that, we can't resist using it for, in place of ribbon. I just thought of something else. I'm going to add it to my list here. Sorry about that. I thought my list was complete. Okay, then in the sewing, just to kind of, again, further trying to organize my thoughts, I thought, okay, what about sewing stuff? So what I would lump into the sewing category would be things like, again, we see a lot of this in our thrifting. This lacy stuff, and it's usually much narrower than this. It's usually, I thought I had some beige stuff here somewhere. It usually comes carded like this. It is typically about 5/8 of an inch wide. And it basically was a way for people who were hand hemming things to be able to sort of finish. Oh, right here. Here's a whole slug of it. This is the typical width. So I think that, is this lace or is this ribbon? And does it matter? I think it probably doesn't matter in the big picture. So this is the kind of stuff you'd find in in the Sewing Notions department. Okay, what else have we got with sewing? We've got seam binding. So of course we all know what seam binding is. I do have some here. And seam binding, of course, no, that's not it, can come in a variety of ways. It can be on a gigantic spool, you know, like 100 yards or so. It can come, carded like this. It can come on a round spool. I can't find any right this second. And it's something that people love to use kind of as maybe as a poor man's sari. You know, get a neutral color, dye it, tea dye it or coffee dye it, and, you know, crinkle it up and use it as a tie or, you know, that sort of thing. Okay, what else? Cording and piping. So there was a time when I was really into sewing, into making cushion covers, and so of course, amp it up a bit, add some piping. So I think that the thing that distinguishes this is the fact that it has this sort of, boy, I've got this, not hangnail, but this sort of flange here. This would be tucked between the two layers of fabric, and this part, the decorative part would be extended beyond the edge of the whatever. Okay, so let's pretend that this was fabric, and that's how that would be the finished edge, the pipe part. So you know that if you see cushion covers like that in the store, you're going to pay extra for it. Now this sort of stuff can also be like a fringe or those pom-pom things. I thought I had another example here off. Oh, now this is not exactly the same thing. This is attached to the surface, and this drives most people insane because it frays so badly. And typically in the store or at home, we would, you know, put a bit of tape over the edge just to keep it from unraveling, because it truly could come totally apart just in the handling. Now cording. Okay, yeah, I'd say this is probably a good example as well. So this is, it has a, I don't know, can you see? It has a little center to it. Typically it's white, and it's like a heavy duty, a cord that's covered with something decorative. So in this case, it's almost like it's braided on there. And if you have seen this, I thought I had, oh, right here. So this, obviously I got it at a thrift store. So I've scotch taped the end to keep it from unraveling, but basically this little glittery part has encased the center, which gives it some body and so on. But, you know, if I were using, you can see that this is unraveling to the point that it could totally disappear, and it exposes what is on the inside. So you can sometimes use that to your advantage if you want to have sort of a fringy type end to your thing. You'd cut the inside cord shorter, and then you'd have these little wispy fibers showing. Okay, what else have I got? Oh, and of course, rickrack. And rickrack, we know, typically comes carded like this kind of stuff, but it also can come on spools. As I was looking through my ribbon in prep for this video, I found a surprising number of spools of rickrack. And of course, that sort of seems old-timey and perhaps a bit kitschy and a bit country. But hey, everything is fair game. We're using things that are far older than rickrack to decorate. So, and I think the beauty of it is that it comes in a variety of sizes. You've probably seen the stuff that is about 1/8 of an inch in diameter, and it can be probably double this width as well. Okay, braid. So I kind of talked about braid here and this metallic one. And of course, a lot of this stuff that we're talking about is also seasonal. So around Christmas, of course, there will be, many more choices out there of metallics and seasonal products that are intended for either gift wrapping or home decor or crafting. So another thing that I have on here are what I would call novelty or sentiment ones. So now boy, this bit of skin is bugging me here. This one, I have a gigantic quantity of this. I didn't set out to buy it. It's colorful. It's got those cute little owls on it. But it is, it came in a grab bag of ribbon. And then here I just put a part of one that says, happy birthday. And of course there are others that are appropriate for babies or for weddings. So, the more generic ones obviously can be used a lot in our projects as well. Maybe under novelty, I should also talk about ones like this that are sort of made up of individual motifs, or one like this that, this is a Dollarama one. Again, very little on this spool, 6 feet. But, a nice effect. I think I have this in a couple of colors. I guess the frugal part of me thinks I want more yardage, but then the downside of having more yardage, because of course, like when you buy ribbon for, well, that's how it used to be anyway. I don't know how it works today, but, you could buy ribbon on a 100-foot roll or a 50-yard roll. Now that is a lot. Now, if we were selling ribbon by the foot or by the yard, then that's great from a retail perspective. Probably not so great for a home crafter scenario. Okay, what else? Oh, again, back to fads and what's hot and what's not. Do you remember a time when you couldn't spin around without hitting pearl strands in every size, description, and color? And this too was one of those things that, kind of was used in a lot of seasonal crafting. This is very tiny. Pearls, of course, came in much bigger sizes, probably up to, say, 1/4-inch little balls. This, of course, was a thrifted purchase. This roll, okay, this says it's 3 millimeters, and there were 4 yards on it. So there's still a place for this in those very lacy, opulent type journals. And they come up every so often in thrift stores. Oh, see, and as I'm saying that, I realized I could have added another category here, and that would be tulle. So we know that tulle can be bought at a fabric store, by the meter. Like if you were making your daughter a tutu, or skating, you know, a figure skating costume or whatever, you'd want those great big chunks of tulle. They're still obviously needed in the bridal industry as well. Tulle also comes on those 6-inch spools, and we've all seen them, and we've probably all used them. So that too, depending on the size of the project, maybe not so much. I could see it being used, say, as a closure, like sort of scrunched up and made narrower as a closure for a journal. They also have had or have a place in general crafting when you want something sort of a big space filler. Now, because tulle is just a really fine netting, usually really fine. Sometimes it comes in a more coarse, let's say, for lack of a better word, a more coarse weave. Because it is so fine, you need several layers kind of bunched up or on top of one another before the actual color really makes any impact at all. Okay, what else have I got? Let me add tulle to my list in case I am quizzed on this later. Another thing that I did not bring here because I didn't think of it in time is embroidery thread and crochet cotton, which would sort of fall in the yarn category as well, I guess. So we know that there's pearl cotton, there's a really fine crochet thread, then there's thicker crochet thread, and of course embroidery floss, which is, you know, typical. Oh, here's a scrap of a fiber. Typical 6-strand cotton that you can either use as is for a bigger impact or take down, you know, into 2-strand or 3-strand or even 1-strand. Believe it or not, when I used to do petty point jewelry, so that is 1 strand of thread on silk gauze. Yeah, crazy. Okay, what else did I want to say? So I kind of brainstormed a list off the style of construction. So this kind with a very visible line in it, comes in a variety of widths, comes in a variety of colors, of course, is called grosgrain, and that's GROAS, grain, grosgrain. Satin I've already talked about, so it's this, where did I put it? It's this double-faced satin, which means that both sides are equally good. So if you were a florist and you were making a bow for a floral arrangement, you didn't have to worry because both sides were equally as good. And that is not true of all ribbon, of course. Pico satin, again, comes in a variety of widths. It's the one with these little loopy things alongside. Twill. Did I put down a sample of twill? Maybe not. Now, as I was attempting to get organized, and I do say attempting, I came across this in my stuff. Now, this says non-slip waistband liner. So we know that it is not going, okay, I guess it's got that grippy little rubbery thing. So this isn't really twill, but I'm going to treat it like it is because we know that twill typically has the diagonal design on it, and it is firm. It's not going to stretch or give. With this, I don't think I grabbed a piece, but I did see one in my travels. So probably not all that common, but there is a certain firmness to it. So if you want something that's not going to give or stretch, twill is probably what you'd be reaching for. Now, we know that there is the fancy dancy stuff. Now, I would call this, I don't know if that's the proper word or not, but I would call this applique ribbon. You know what, now that I think about it, it's probably not accurate, but I don't have anything else to really show you. So the way I'm considering this, it would be where you have sort of definite elements that you could theoretically cut around and use in an applique style of working with it. Now this is on like a tool type backing. So, I would think that the most common way this would be used, and I bought this because I loved it. Of course, I haven't used an inch of it. Would be if a person was just putting it, say, alongside, decorating an edge of a page or something. The easiest way would be to sew down the two edges. So there's that. Flocked. So this got as a remnant somewhere, or as in a grab bag. This one is both wired, and I remember when we had our shop, well, when wired ribbon came out, I mean, that was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Because it meant that if you made a great big loopy bow, you could shape it and it would hold its shape. It wouldn't droop. So you could have gigantic loops. Consider that as maybe one side of a loop. Now, if I was doing that with satin, we know that it would fall over. So this, I'm not sure you can see, but this has a flocked aspect to the design. And it also has a wired edge. And you can see the wire is in there. And you don't want to use your good scissors to cut it because, of course, that will... You probably want, if you have a lot of wired ribbon, you probably want to designate a pair just to do that. You wanted them sharp enough to be able to not chew up the edge of the ribbon, but also, be able to cut through this fine wire. The other thing that I've sometimes done, and I didn't bring a sample of that, is that suppose I have a different plan in mind for this ribbon and I don't want the wired edge. So you can cut off a chunk and then just slip the wire out. So that's another possibility. Okay, what else have I got? Woven. Maybe, okay, what was I thinking when I said woven? Or did I mean this when I was thinking about woven? That could have been what I had in mind there. Velvet I've already talked about, and of course I also said it comes in many widths. So what else do we have here? At one point I bought a grab bag. Now this is silk ribbon. I've got many rolls. It just came in this one color, so of course I grabbed it. Now, what I've seen in the past with this one is that it's not color fast, so I don't know what's up with that. This one on the packaging, another thrifted thing, they call this crepe ribbon, so it's essentially paper. Here's another cotton one, and of course, who doesn't love a little Swiss dot? This one is a combination of two things, like a ribbon, so a cotton ribbon, and a lace that has been sewn onto it. Now, if I really hated the look of that, I could very easily... I moved my seam ripper. but, you know, it would be easy enough to pull that off. This one is very unusual, and the reason I have it and like it is because it reads as copper. But it got a bit mangled, and you can see that underneath is sort of, this is like that curling ribbon that drives most of us crazy. So it was probably a curling ribbon that was just a little fancier. So yeah, you can see here that it was, let me get that thread off there, that metallic-y thing must have just been glued onto, yeah, it is a bit sticky, glued onto a base of like a curling ribbon type thing. This stuff, this base material here, is the hallmark of that really cheap ribbon that you can get for gift wrapping. The absolute awful, awful stuff. Again, I guess it serves its purpose for gift wrapping, but it is not fun to work with at all. So somewhere here, I put this stuff, the rest of the roll, I took it off its spool and I put it on a card. Maybe I put it away. I do put stuff away occasionally. Okay, I talked about wired, I talked about velvet, and, you know, maybe I just didn't talk about bedazzled. So I too bought this, you know, full retail at Fabricland. Again, because the colors appeal to me, and because one day I've got so many things done for it. One day I will have a boho journal to show you. This stuff is pricey. I believe that I bought this and this on sale. So, you know, again, if you have the patience and the time to wait for a sale, that's always a good idea. Oh, maybe I should show you this too. This is like a seam binding or a satin. The backside's not so good. So more like a seam binding that has had these, what do you call them? Sequins, basically, sewn onto the edge. So that too is lovely. So maybe, okay, did I cover everything that I wanted to in terms of, well, yeah, maybe. Okay. I reserve the right to go back and revisit something if I need to. So a lot of us have bits and pieces. You know, there's a little bit left. So at one point, I got fed up with having all kind, and this is just, this is the tip of the iceberg. So again, probably had been binge watching Tina at Shabby Dabby Doodah. So I thought, okay, let me just make bows. Whoops, this is going to be a problem if it unravels. So I have this clear drawer, and I just began using up things that were within reach and had been, you know, either in a bag or a basket or whatever, and just to deal with them. I also have some tassels in here. So I'll just show you a few of these. Now, this is that double-faced satin. I would iron this, and although I don't have one here in my craft room, I do have a spare travel hair straightener that I should have here for these tiny little jobs. Now, okay, so bows, simple bows. Again, I would never set out to buy this, but it obviously came in a grab bag. So you can see that bows, just a loop, kind of a shoelace bow. Raffia, glittery, meshy, netty type stuff. Baker's twine. 1/8 inch satin. A grosgrain with a see, now this one, the impulse is for it to turn this way. Just the nature of the beast. Of course, if I was using this to decorate something, I would make sure the right side is showing and, put a dot of glue there. What else do I want to show you? Again, a narrow one. A little teeny tiny bit of cord. I don't even know. This could even be a book binding cord that I was using. And again, you cut off that excess. Well, what do you do with it? Do you throw it out or do you make a teeny tiny little bow like that? This is one of those that would like to fray. I'm just trying to think where this might have come from. Now, a lot of these are really slippery, so you can adjust, get the size of loop that you want. Quite often, I will double knot them just so that they don't want to undo. Now, sometimes you don't have enough length to do that, but you certainly can put a little dot of glue. Here's a glittery one. Again, and how and where these things get used, of course, depend on your taste and your project. This is a bit of fabric. This is a piece of yarn. This is some dyed muslin-y type stuff. So, obviously, this, and who knows what this is. I don't know how to, I guess that's braided. Someone must have braided something. So I made a little bow out of it. Embroidery floss. So then there are what I would call sort of the commemoration type ribbons, the war in Ukraine, Every Child Matters, gender equality, Black Lives Matter, you name it. And I mean, these obviously aren't those, but that's the sort of thing, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, that's the sort of thing that you see people wearing on their lapels. And of course, Tina, of course, uses that to decorate her various aspects of things. Here's a sheer ribbon or a sheer bow. Here's one with a sentiment on it, celebrate. This is like one of those little cord ones. And because I told you before that or a braided one, I mean, they like to unravel, I tie a knot at the end so that if they do unravel, it can only go so far. It's not going to totally disappear because I neglected to take care of that. What I don't seem, okay, here's another fabric one. What I don't seem to have in here, and I'm kind of surprised. Oh, here's a twine one. I showed you raffia ones before. See, this is like twill. And it's, it's like a cotton, very natural feeling and looking, soft. What I haven't shown here is that if you know how to make I'll finish one thought and then start another. This is something that obviously was wrapped around something. So again, if we're truly recycling things, then we can use branded ribbon as well. Well, that one says let's party. But you've seen ones that are, that have a company name on it as part of their branding. They maybe had it attached to a gift box or a gift basket type product. Okay, where was I going with this? Oh, one of the things that when we had our shop is that we often had ran craft classes. So again, because it's a product we wanted to sell and because it's colorful and versatile and decorative, quite often projects involved ribbon. So suppose I wanted, maybe it was a floral design class that I was teaching or something. You want, a ribbon like this isn't going to have much impact. You want the multi-loop bow. So basically, it is surprising the number of people who think that they cannot make a bow. I'm here to tell you that anybody can learn how to make a bow. It's probably not the scope of this video because let me look at the time. Oh dear, we're approaching an hour and I still really have, I've given you a lot of info, but yeah, let's leave that for another day. Let me show you some of the uses, and this is where it's going to be, like me preaching to the converted. You will have probably done most of these things already and be wondering, well, why is she wasting our time talking about that? And I guess not everybody's at the same point in their evolution as crafters, so, it's a good reminder for people who have forgotten to do certain things or use certain products. And it's also, it's an introduction to people who are brand new. Oh, see, now this is just a look at the organizational thing. I wanted to get, and these were actually loose strands just in a basket. I guess I thought, well, if it's loose, I'm more likely to use it. Well, you can see how much of this is on here. So just to contain it and make it easier to see, I wound it up on a thick piece of cardboard. And of course, there's no uniformity to the cards that I'm using. There is, in a perfect world. Oh, see, these kinds of things are another example of braid. And of course, the issue here is unraveling. In a perfect world, everything would be uniform. And they would be grouped by color. So in other words, I'd have all my greens, if I had this kind of a Kelly green, they would all be there. The 1/8, the 3/8, the 5/8, the 7/8, all the way through. Some things in the past, when there are those tiny little craft schools, I have sort of grouped by color. So that obviously looks nicer in the drawer as well as makes kind of more sense. This one is something that, I guess I bought it this way. Sort of that color families all together. This one, and again, you can see that I hack away at these things to have them take as little room as possible. Who knows, maybe someday I will do better with some of this, but in the meantime, I just want it visible so that I can use it up. Here's the thing. And I didn't want to tape it because I knew that would wreck the end. So this is a hair elastic. Okay. In a previous video, I talked about some really dated, ugly cotton ribbon. This was a carryover from this obviously was hot in its day. It looked like patchwork. It was in these earth tones, but I couldn't see myself ever using this today in a junk journal. So and this was the original width. So basically what I did was I took several lengths of it, and I don't know, to be honest, if I can't find the roll, so who knows, maybe I've seen the end of it. So I just gessoed basically the one side to knock back the color. And I have used this kind of stuff to strengthen a spine, you know, where it's not going to be visible. You know, like in place, say, of Tyvek tape or whatever, because I mean, it is 100% cotton, it's woven. The gesso adds another layer of strength to it, and it's a way to use it up. So I thought, well, okay, I also have a 5-inch roll of something really tropical looking. It's got the bird of paradise on it. It's got the teals and the hot pinks and whatever. Again, because it's so wide, it is not particularly easy to use up. I can't remember. Oh yeah, and that one too is a woven cotton. Now the beauty of using these is that you can cut them lengthwise and they won't easily unravel. So there's something to be said for that. Because of course, as we work with these things, sometimes how badly something unravels, it really determines whether or not, you know, where and how you'll use it, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so just before this video, I came across the roll of seam binding. So this is a nice neutral gray. 100 yards, man. And it's as old as the hills, you can tell. There's a lot still on here. And I guess I paid 50 cents for it. Okay, so what I did, using one of my favorite dies, I ran a piece of this, small piece of this stuff through the die cutter. And that I can see myself using, because it's muted and you can't tell it was kind of a patchwork design. So that's another possibility. Now, I didn't have a chance before turning on the camera to see you know, like what would happen if I tried running something like this flocked one. I would take the wire out though, for sure. Another ribbon that I did something with, well, or I intend to do something with. Okay, hold that thought. So then I started thinking about, well, okay, let's go through the uses. And we know that there's probably nothing going to be very earth-shattering here in what I say about that. So we can use ribbon to decorate tags and journal cards. Now this one, I couldn't find the rest of it. Like I couldn't find this light mauve spool or card in the drawer. So I don't know if this is the last of it, and that's why I chose to use it. This is a tag that has a variety of, there's some napkin paper on here, some tags, some book page, you know, some label, like it's pretty. Now I've tied this here twice, I see. So I don't know what my intention was. If I was going to very artfully glue it down and sort of give it a little, you know, a little twist here and there. That's the other nice thing about the satin, is that both sides are good. So if you do a little, you know, contrive a little twist in it and glue it down in a couple places, both sides are going to look equally good. Or maybe it was my intention to make a shoelace bow. I don't know. But, so that's an example of a tag. I have this kind of stuff. Again, I'm sure I didn't pay full retail for this. So again, for like a farm journal or something kind of more rustic looking, I thought, well, okay, probably going to make more use of this if I go through the kind of pain in the butt gluing down of this. as opposed to, oh yeah, I've got this on a card. Why don't I'll have to use that someday. So what I did was cut off. I had this tea-dyed bit of ledger paper, and I used I used Fabri-Tac, and of course it oozed out and so on. But I picked it off while it was still there. And again, what is this going to be? I don't know. Do I cut it down and have this be the pocket, and this is a way to strengthen the edge of a pocket, strengthen and decorate the edge of a pocket? Does it become, mind you, that's a bit of bulk there. So if I decided to turn this into a signature or cut it down into quarters and make it into 2 signature pages for a smaller journal, I would probably snip out the section that would be on the spine just to reduce the bulk there. But this is more usable to me than this is. So that's the sort of prep work we can do. I then have, I have colored paper because I bought a lot of it. And I do mean an auction lot of it. So at one point and this is a long time ago, I just began gluing ribbon down to page edges. Just again to get a leg up on some of the on using up some of that and having signature pages ready to go. So you can see that a lot of these probably all came carded together because they sort of match. And I don't have to show you every single thing. Just know that there are a lot. Now this one is different, and I'm pretty sure I've used it all up. This is like, it looks like ribbon, but in fact it's more like paper. So decorating the edge of signature pages is clearly another thing that a person can do with ribbon. We know that we have a bit more flexibility in decorating a journal cover because bulk is less of an issue there. So we can use ribbon for tags and journal cards, page edges, covers, pockets, and tucks. Now on this one, I think this might have been a freebie from Scrapbooking with Me. I'm not sure what this other paper is. This was obviously a master board that I had done and gessoed over. I did this a long time ago. I don't remember what I did, but I suspect that I punched those holes and then threaded that same, I must have been on a kick to use up that lavender ribbon, the same Pico satin and threaded it through there. So that's another very, very simple thing. We also know that if we use, if we take apart books that have been cinched or like other coil bound books, that there are all those pre-cut holes that a person can thread the right width of ribbon through. So this is that 100% cotton that I just glued on to this tag as a sort of a topper. This is a piece of satin, two-sided double-faced satin. And I have a, not that you need to buy this at all, I just like the look of it, so I splurged on this slot punch. I like this much more than those with, the merchandising type ones that have the little bump in them that sit on a pegboard hook. I like this better. And of course, it's the perfect width for something like that. Now, you won't have seen it because it's scheduled to appear. This was, I bought a grab bag of papers that included these sort of do-it-yourself wedding kits. So this piece, this was like a prototype or a sample that was in the package. I did not do this. Cardstock with 2 holes cut into it, pre-cut lengths of ribbon and vellum with 2 holes cut. So you can see how beautiful that looks, just as it is. So what is the width here? So it's just over, it's 5 1/4 inches by 3, 6, 7 3/4. So, you know, whether this gets glued down to a page, maybe it needs to be trimmed a smidge, maybe it needs to be shortened. Like, I don't know. I always like to think about, could it be a signature page? And of course, it could be, you know, if a person somehow tacked down that other end. Didn't do anything with it, just came across that yesterday. Here is more of that same. This was also another crafted item, but let me not talk about, not crafted, thrifted item. This is me using that same cotton ribbon just as a page edge on something that it went with. Now, I showed you this ribbon earlier, just a small quantity, Dollarama. This one I bought somewhere. I don't know what I paid for it, but of course, 50 yards. But it is gorgeous. I have tea dyed some of this and I've used it elsewhere. You know, it kind of looks like lattice. So on this same paper, what I did was I glued down the white lattice one and then did this aqua one over it. So is that overkill? I don't know. It certainly seemed like a smart decision when you're trying to get rid of and use up the things one already owns. And of course, I have way more of this than I do of this. But actually, for that matter, now I pinned it back up, but I could also, because there's a center design to this. I could thread an 1/8 inch. I won't do it because this video is so long anyway, but let's just pretend. You know, this could be threaded through there, and that would give it another look. I could probably even get away with a 1/4 inch one there as well. So once a person, you know, kind of pulls out these materials and thinks, okay, now what, now what, now what? I think that's when the ideas begin percolating, as opposed to, okay, I made a tag, I need a topper, give me the closest thing within reach. Now, again, at the risk of keeping you far, 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 far too long, I will show you one more thing. Oh, in terms of, okay, so these things that I've just shown you, these are decorative, but there are also functional uses to ribbon. So again, back to something like this, I've already said that I've used it to reinforce a spine. This sort of woven ribbon could also be used to hinge pages or flips. And in a journal, but I don't have one handy, we know that the lovely satin ribbon, probably in a width like this, is often glued into the spine as a movable bookmark. So that is another possibility. But how do I want to end this video? A long time ago, and I don't know who or why I did it, I saw these ribbon crimp things. So of course, am I going to buy a tiny little package? No, I'm going to put this on my Christmas list and have someone buy me this whole assortment. Now, there is a much smaller size that would accommodate, say, a satin ribbon that size, which is 3/8. So I thought, I've never cracked this thing open. I've never used it. It's high time I used it. So because I had been working on something else that will be the subject of an upcoming video, I had a piece of this fabric, but you can see how terribly, terribly easily it frays. Then, believe it or not, this brown thing is actually elastic, but I could have used, you know, a girl grain ribbon. I had this satin ribbon, and it all kind of worked together, and it is something that will, maybe this will make sense once you see that video, the video I'm talking about. Anyway, so I cut the fabric to the right width because you want it to fit exactly. Now, I had also heard, and of course, I'm obedient, sometimes to a fault, maybe let me take that back. I'm either very obedient and follow advice because I think, why not learn from other people's mistakes or other people's advice? And sometimes I'm just oppositional defiant. You tell me to do this, no, well, damn it, I'm doing the opposite. Anyway, somewhere along the way, I was led to believe, now can I find it to show you? Oh my God, I have such a mess here, you guys. I was led to believe that the only way you could possibly use this well, this is gonna suck if I can't find it. Oh, did I put it away by accident? Yes, I did. The only way, see, if in doubt, look in the proper place. The only way that you could possibly ever use one of these is with nylon tipped crimping pliers. Now, so of course I looked high and low and I found this, and I hope I bought it on sale because it wasn't really cheap. But what I didn't know until I used it for the first time yesterday is, you can see there's a hollow and there is a curve. Well, that doesn't work very damn well on something that is flat like this. So I'd use this on there, and I don't know, you can I tried to flatten it out, but you can see that it is not very even. So after the fact, I watched some videos, and a lot of them are really old, like I'm talking 6-10 years old. So I don't know if I'm breathing life into an old idea or what, but and then I realized, well, this is no good to anybody. I mean, obviously I'll probably take it apart and salvage it, but that fabric is hopeless. So then what I did was I did another one. This time I used fabric as well. Again, you can see that there's a relationship in the colors, and at some point you'll know why. But this time, okay, so I tore a strip of this fabric that would be this size, you know, the right size for the crimp. I then zigzagged in a neutral color. I then used this satin, and I used the hem, what do we call it? Hem something something. Hem facing. So then I use this. So you get, and I think it's really sweet, to be honest. And then because these crimps have a little tiny hook at the top, because I guess they're really used to make chokers and other jewelry that is, or necklaces that you would then attach a metal closure to, like a little piece of chain, or, you know, something and a lobster closure. Anyway, all I did was, and I did both ends because I thought that these would make really sweet bookmarks. So I attached a bulb pin that matched, and of course at some point I would attach, I just didn't have the chance to look for, you know, a few beads that match, or, you know, who knows, something else will be added to decorate it. So there's that. And then I wanted to show you, I have another piece of really, you know, kind of stiff woven ribbon. Again, got it in a grab bag. Know that this size of crimping thing will work. And I have to say, it's not that easy. I mean, it's easy to do it, but boy, a third hand would really help. What I saw some people do on these past videos was use a dab of glue inside this metal thing. And I don't know, can you see that it's got those little teeth? So it's those teeth, when you squeeze them shut, that grip the ribbon or the fabric or whatever it is that you're using in there. Now, you will also notice that in this whole box, these all have kind of almost like, well, I don't want to say checker plate, but almost like, you know, they have a design in them. And I think the simple reason for that is that if it was flat silver metal, using anything but a nylon tipped plier, a crimper would clearly scratch it. So when this created more problems than it solved, I then looked through my other tools and I found these needle nose pliers that are essentially smooth inside. They don't have a ridge in there that, let's show you some others. See this one, I don't know, can you see it has that ridge for gripping? So if I did that, it would make all those little indentations. What else have I got here? Okay, this one is smooth as well. Actually, I should maybe try that one today. Because what I found using that really long one, see, and this is a cutter, so I don't think, yeah, if I use that, well, let's try it on the one that I basically wrecked. Where did I put it? Okay, let's see what happens if I do this. Well, it makes a very definite line. So if I was using this, I would have to make sure that I keep lining myself up and make it look like part of the design, as opposed to, oh, why did she make a ridge there? I guess that's another possibility. So what I'm saying is, if you decide that, oh, I live to crimp, then don't feel, unless you're smarter than I am and can figure out how to make this work, don't invest in that. Use some of these other tools that you probably already own. Okay, so let's do this one and let me release you. Okay, so I said that in the videos that I watched, people would put a dab of glue, you know, something like E6000 or whatever. Now, I suppose if I would have okay, I'll tell you two things. I did refill my Fabri-Tac, so hopefully it won't take long to get a usable bead. When I did this one, that is a lot of pieces to juggle. Somebody in one video said, oh, and just sort of squeeze it. I wasn't able, and maybe that's because this is so darn big, I wasn't able to just hand squeeze this shut. So imagine trying to deal with the open jaws of this plus 3 loose pieces. So what I had done, even on this boo-booed one, I tacked the things down with glue, just so they would hold together. At first I thought, oh, I'm just going to do it at the ends because that's where the action is. But then I'm thinking, well, I don't want this gaping open elsewhere. If it's a bookmark, that would be kind of dumb. So on this one, I used a dab of glue. I didn't really worry about it seeping through, and I probably used, I'd say, art glitter glue. And then down this lacy one, I sewed it just for extra, stability, and to make sure that there was not a problem with lifting. So basically what they said, somebody said, was you can put a dab of glue in there, and of course that's going to help hold things. And there would be, I almost think it's easier to put it on the ribbon than in here. So let's just do that. Now this ribbon is basically, good on one side. So using on the back side, I'll just put a bead of art, or of, what do you call it, Fabri-Tac. And I guess Fabri-Tac is good because, you do have some time. But the thing about Fabri-Tac is that it also takes a while to grip. So let me just find something, my handy dandy spatula perhaps, to get in there. And you want to insert the ribbon or the fabric as far into the jaws as you can. And of course, metal and fabric, and so did it? Oh, that's pretty good. It made contact already. So let's, okay, did I measure this for length? 3, 6, 9. Oh, I wanted 9 inches. Okay, if a book, yeah, let's do 9 inches. And we know that it's going to extend up beyond the, oh, great. If you want glue on your mat, that's a way to do it. Oh, rubs off while wet. Grab my little spatula, press it down, have it make good contact. And I think this is going to make life a heck of a lot simpler for me than what I was struggling with yesterday. So maybe we'll give that a second. Again, you want your edges of the ribbon or the fabric to be, a nice 90-degree cut. Like a diagonal would obviously just create problems for you and look kind of sloppy, I would say. Yeah, and I think adding this step of adding a smidge of glue makes a lot of sense as well. So you saw the results I got using this. And I guess, the beauty of this is that it's long enough that it covers the whole length of it. But because it narrows, it doesn't apply the same amount of pressure. So I'm wondering, maybe on this one, is this the first side I glued? Maybe on this one, what I should do, I'm going to try this smaller tool and just kind of go in with the tip from each end. Maybe I will try to, and I'm going to go back and forth instead of scrunching down one whole side and then trying to do it a little more in a more measured way. so that I have a nicer finished look. Now this, of course, is not going to please those people who want things, done now. But this, to my eye, is nicer than that. But again, is anyone going to stop and really look that hard at it? Probably not. And even though it doesn't have a nylon throat to it, again, because of the design, it is not getting visibly damaged. Now that, you can see that because I was using this that is shorter, it has not crimped it as much in the middle. Can you see that? There's that little kind of wow there. So let's then maybe use this one as a final step to squeeze down that middle. Now between the art or the Fabri-Tac and the little teeth that I've now dug in, this is not going anywhere ever. You'll see, even just by going in, kind of just localizing the pressure to the middle, that does the trick there. I have to say, I am glad that I used the Fabri-Tac, and I'm also glad that I, for your benefit, am doing it sort of more in stages as opposed to thinking that, oh, 2 good squeezes and I'm going to be done. Because this does look better than the sample I made yesterday. And again, how much this matters in the long run, I guess that's up for debate. So I'm going to say that's all, folks. Obviously, now that I have this, where are my little tiny fabric? My little sharpest scissors. Now that I have this, I'm more likely to reach for it and use it. So this is probably one of those things that would lend itself to a mask making session. See, I could even use the back of that and it would be even more muted. Lend itself to a mask making session because once you've pulled a million things out, you kind of want to get your money's worth out of that effort. And I've got a lot of crimps. I've got a lot of ribbon. And then the final decoration, whether it's a bulb pin or beads or, looping some embroidery thread through there or whatever, then is more a last minute decision when the bookmark is going to be added to the actual specific project. Anyway, we've been at this now for 3 days, so I would say thanks. If you've stuck to the end, thank you so much. If you have millions of yards of ribbon, I hope that you look at it through a new eye and with new information at your disposal. And I hope that you pull it out and begin doing something spectacular or even mundane with it, because it's a resource that has so much potential and it's already in our inventory. We don't need to rush out and buy any. So let's use it. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have found value here, by all means, please give me a thumbs up. Please make a comment. And please consider subscribing. because it helps me and it helps you, and it means that I will continue to put the time and effort and supplies into bringing you useful and or entertaining content. So, thanks. See you tomorrow. Bye.